Al-Shalchi's research interests include language pedagogy, as for most of us here, the use of technology in the classroom, material development, learning strategies, and the cognitive load effect on learners with varying learner knowledge backgrounds. She's published an article about effective online learning and several works of poetry as well. Today's talk is called Using Short Listening Dialogues in the Communicative Context. Please help me welcome our first time here, Dr. Al-Shalchi.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for coming out this afternoon. So I would just like to walk you through a couple of different examples of some different listening activities that we do in our first year Arabic class. And hopefully by walking through these examples, this will give you some ideas of how this can be done in other language classes. And there is this here same handout printed for you. This is my notes to help me follow my presentation and to help you as well. These are for you, so use them as you'd like. And so this year I have been really focusing with teaching the beginning level Arabic classes. And in this semester, our students began the semester with a textbook that they had previously used. Last semester they had completed through chapter 4 of the textbook. This semester we began with chapter 5. And so this is an activity that's done early on in the beginning of the spring semester. And in chapter 5 there are 2 different listening assignments that I like to use together in one 50-minute class period. And the videos you'll see they're fairly short videos, and it's at first easy to think, oh, well, we could just play this, be done with it, and it would be like a 10-minute class and over and done with. But there's really a lot of things that you could do with the listening activities, and a lot of ways to have the learners engaged and make these really short videos into much longer class periods. And so one of these videos, the first video, is called Shusho, which means, like so hot. And so as a pre-listening activity, and it's really important to include pre-listening activities to really try to get the learners to focus on what will they be listening. Try to get them to focus in on specific vocabulary and what exactly they'll be watching. And so the title is placed for them up on the screen just like this. And so they read the title, and then it's all about having them be the ideas. Okay, so from this one title, what kind of language would we expect to hear in this video? And so then they start to talk about, okay, well, weather, and what other words do we know about weather? It's hot, it's sunny, it's humid, the temperature is so hot, or whatever that would be. And also thinking about the setting. Where could this be taking place? It's hot in Texas, maybe it's here. So just different type of things. And so that's just sort of a pre-listening activity to get them to zero in on what exactly they'll be watching. And so for the first time they watch this video, I like to do it without sound. And this, I think, will let them focus more on what type of nonverbal communication is being used. And just from that, and the clips are short enough that we're able to do this, they're able to then come up with their own type of story. And so just to show you all, with this video, this is exactly how it would be done. But they're not going to hear anything at all. I would just play it for them and have them pay attention to what's happening. It's just a little bit less than a minute, and so I'll play it for you here too. Okay, and so from this short segment then, it's easy to make this into a whole big class discussion, but not at the very beginning. I don't like to do that just yet because our classes are really large, and so I think it's important to also try to give students as much time as possible to practice using their target language. And so then I have students in pairs discuss in Arabic, then what did you just see? What was happening? How many people are there? Where are they? What could be the relationship between them? How is the title of this video incorporated in this video? And then after a couple of minutes of them discussing that together, then it's time to open it up to have a class discussion and have people, you know, give different answers as to what they think could be happening and things like that. And so then, after that, the second time to watch the video would be done again without sound. And then this time, instead of having the students go back and say, okay, this is what's happening, because they're seeing what's happening, but they still don't have the words yet, and then the students are going to be themselves creating the dialogue. And so you would have, you know, there's only two people in the video, so working in pairs, one person being the woman, one person being the man, you know, and then, okay, what could she be saying? What is he responding with? Their facial expressions, what movements is she doing? And so that would be, you know, with the second listening, that there would be a chance to watch, pause, okay, what could be the dialogue that's happening between the two. After the second kind of watching and pausing and creating their own dialogue, then you could have some students, you know, present to the class. Well, could be, you know, what we're seeing in the video. And then it's not until the third time that I'd like to play the video then with the actual audio. And at this point, the students, they've seen it pause, they've created their own type of dialogue, and now they're going to actually watch the dialogue with sound and find out what exactly is happening. And so at that point, then students can, you know, discuss again in their pairs what was actually being said, how is that different from the dialogue that they created, and how is it similar to the dialogue that they created? Were they right? Were they wrong? Things like that. And then, almost with every one of our video presentations that we do in our class, there's usually some type of expression that is introduced to the students. And so with the third time listening, once the students have discussed and gone through and all of that, I tried to get from them if they were able to identify what those expressions were and how were they being used. If students were able to get it from the first time, from that third watch with the sound, then great. If not, then we could go back and then stop, pause at those expressions and, you know, figure out what does it mean, when are they using it. And then, because these are new expressions and students haven't been introduced to them yet, and they are appropriate for this type of dialogue, have students then go back to their own dialogues and see, okay, where could I fit in this expression? Where could it be used in what I'm saying? How could I make my own dialogue be more authentic? And there's like many different ways in Arabic to, you know, do the thank you and you're welcome. And usually that's what students want to just go back to is the regular thank you, you're welcome. But then there's all these different expressions of, you know, thanking people with their different body parts and all of that. And so that's not an instinct for them to generally, you know, put that in. And so having them then edit what they've just created to make it more authentic is a way for them to go back to what they've done and see, you know, as a first type of narration, this is what I thought, and it could be completely fine and no problems with it, but then also into incorporating some new material. And that would be the end of the first video. And in the same class period, I would also show a second video, which is kind of related to this first one, We saw in the video, right, that the man was drinking water, and so we have that to go with. And the second video is called Shu Tishrab, what would you like to drink? And so I'm gonna just again walk through the same kind of process with, all right, this is the title of the video, and let's brainstorm, let's think about what kind of words would we be expecting to hear. You know, what are different things that we can drink? What are the different settings of where this could be taking place? And again, watch the video without sound. And I will play the second video for you so that you will have the same type of experience. And again, this video is 43 seconds, so again, less than a minute. It's not long at all. Okay, and so then once the students have seen this video, immediately following, you know, the previous one, you know, I would have the students again discuss what was happening in the video, who was in the video, what could they be talking about, how does the title of the video relate to the actions that we saw, and then also what type of relationship exists between these two people. In the first video, we saw that the man was getting a drink of water, or he had wanted to get a drink of water. And in the first video, the relationship was between husband and wife. And so in the second video, students also immediately tend to think, oh yeah, this is also a husband and wife relationship. And then, so that's where and also with their body language, the way that they're standing so close to each other, the way that they're sitting, his eye contact with the lady. And so I usually get that type of response from students. And then the second time, when we watch the video, we do this time immediately with sound, not pausing and trying to create our own dialogue. But this time we do second watching with sound. And then discuss immediately after what type of relationship exists between the two people. And they are not husband and wife in this video, they are brother and sister. And that immediately, you know, is almost very surprising to students, because they see that the way that they're standing, standing very close to each other, eye contact is made. When they're sitting down too, they're sitting pretty close to each other. And so even that is a little bit strange to them. And so, you know, we talk then about, you know, why is it that initially you thought about maybe these people are husband and wife, or boyfriend or girlfriend, or some type of, you know, some type of relationship like that exists, and then when you find out that it's brother and sister, you know, how does that then change the whole story of what you were thinking about, and just that whole body language, what does that let us know? And then the third time in watching this would be done really to check for understanding, again, stopping with any type of new expressions that are introduced, and making sure that the general understanding of the dialogue has been understood. In the video, there's towards the end of this video, there's the part where the lady, she's asking her brother, what would you like to drink? And he says, no, nothing. And she says, no, you have to drink something. And this is something that students have been introduced to, this idea of refusal, as something that students had been previously introduced to in the first semester of taking Arabic. And so this is also just kind of trying to get their memories back to like the first few weeks of Arabic, several months before, and reviewing this etiquette of refusal. And what's really interesting too is that this etiquette of refusal was very clear in the second video, but it did not happen in the first video. And so then it's also a chance for us to say, like, okay, well, when is it appropriate to refuse something to drink? Or, when would this be something that you would do? And when is it appropriate to just be like, oh no, I'd like water, please, yeah, give me some more water. And so then we're also talking about these different types of relationships that exist. And those two videos and going through all of these different steps would get us through 50-minute class and possibly even more than that. And as a follow-up, also it's important to not just have a pre-listening activity, but also a way for students to kind of have a summary of all of this. Would be for students to then have a follow-up homework assignment to go back and then listen to the listening video individually and have them really focus on individual words, and making sure that, yes, in class, it seems that everybody has understood, but at the same time we want to make sure that there has been a focus on word formation, on verb conjugations, different grammatical structures. And so this then would give the students to do that, and it would give students independently, each a chance to do that. And once they submit their homework assignment, then that would allow the instructor to see, did they really understand these words? Are there spelling, are they hearing what they are writing? And just give us more to focus on with the learner. Another class activity that could be done using another listening activity. And this is a very, very short segment. And this will take up, I was actually a little bit skeptical because I thought there's no way that this could take up a 50-minute class period. The video is not even a minute long. And I was surprised by how passionate the students really were in discussing this. And this video is later on in the semester, so then we're jumping into chapter 8. So students have been, back in class for a couple of months, and let's go, 6. And so instead of doing the listening assignment as an in-class activity as the first time that they are going to be introduced, instead of this being as an in-class activity where they're first being introduced to this, students are going to prepare for this listening assignment before they actually come to class. And so preparing for assignments is really very important, because if they haven't prepared for this, then they're just completely lost. And so, so this is something that we really stress, that they are well prepared for class and that they do this. Just like we had in the previous activity, a chance for students to focus on different words and making sure that what they're hearing, they're producing that correctly, that they're spelling correctly. The same thing will be done, but this time it's going to be done as a pre-class activity. And so with this video, so students will have watched this at home, completed a fill in the blank where they're doing a close listening, and then come to class ready to discuss this. And I will play this one for you here. And we would come to class, sorry, I'll play it in just a second. We would come to class, discuss what happened in the video, they've prepared for it, they've completed their fill in the blank exercise, and then have students discuss what was happening in the video, just to make sure that there is a general understanding that we're not talking about a completely different topic. And then at that point, the video would be watched in class as a second time. Make sure that everything that was stated was correct. If there was any parts of the video that are missing, to go back and make sure that there is that they've understood what was actually being said. And so this is the second video.
ابني ليش ما أكلت معنا؟ شو عم تفكر؟
بالدراسة بمستقبلي أنا بدي أدرس أدب فرنسي.
بس يا ابني
يا بابا أنت بتعرف إنه أنا بحب الأدب.
وأنا كمان بحب الأدب، بس الأدب ما له مستقبل، والمستقبل للتجارة.
Okay, and so in this video, right, so we have here an adab ma ila mustaqbal. There's no future for literature. And so then we start, after we've made sure that we have understood the video, there are no questions about what was being said, then this video allows us to have a much broader cultural discussion, right? And so we're here, in the video, the father is telling his son, yeah, you really shouldn't study literature. It doesn't have a future. You should be studying commerce. And then, opening up the floor and asking the students, okay, how many of you guys study literature? Do you see a future for yourself? What do your parents think about you studying literature? Is there this idea that, the sciences are, seen or given more respect than, the arts and things like that. And this is done in Arabic as much as possible. Sometimes students, I found, are extremely passionate about the subject and want to express themselves. And so I do allow for them to, express themselves in English if they're unable to in Arabic, if they don't have all of the vocabulary just yet. But we do discuss this whole idea of what people should be studying and, whose decision is that? Is that the parent's decision? Is that the child's decision? And previous to this, students had already been introduced to this, the idea of the I don't know, what is it called here? It's a qualifying exam. I guess similar to like the SAT and ACT, where students in their final year of high school, they take this exam. Depending on how well they do in the exam, they're admitted into one of the colleges. And it's a very stressful time for students. The higher your score, the better chance you are getting into one of the, medicine or science or something like that, which is what the ultimate kind of goal is for many Arab families. And so we talk about, bring that up again. And we talk about that exam and, all the different things that factor into, what is your major and how do you make that decision? And, should this be an individual choice or should this, be a family choice? And, how much weight does your family's opinion play in trying to, decide your whole future educational life? And so students, because they're right now at that point in their life where they're making these decisions, they're deciding what's their major going to be, what's their minor going to be. Some of them, talk to their parents about these choices, some of them do not. And so it just opens up this whole big dialogue about, what they're going through and then exactly what they saw in this video with the son there. And so that gets us into a whole big discussion. And I do, though, always like to have the students kind of either recreate a dialogue similar to what they watched or to then expand on whatever dialogue they've created, expand on the dialogue that they've seen. And so after we've discussed the video and after we've discussed the different cultural importance of education and comparing it between the different cultures, Then I give the students 2 different options, and I tell them, okay, so now you have the father and the son. The father wants his son to study commerce, and you're going to be the good son, and you're going to do what your father says. And then you're going to have the rebellious son, and he wants to study literature, and he's not going to care what his father says, and he's going to go ahead and study literature, and then come up with a dialogue about that, and what would then your future look like depending on which one of these routes you were to take. And so then that's building on what they've learned, what they've seen in this video, and the cultural implications, and all of that then is then created into this skit that they're able to perform and show in front of the class and let them, show that they have understood these different concepts. And so that is what I have to share with you all today. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any of them, I hope. Yes.
Questions? Yes.
Yes, that was
Nancy,
fabulous. I loved that. We're creating a hybrid course in French and Italian, and I'm looking for great in-class ideas. So you gave me many. So I had a few questions for you. First of all, you talk about how the students will, think about what's going to be shown in the videos, as kind of pre-listening, previewing, and then here, for example, they're going home and they're continuing to write. Are they doing this individually, or are they doing it with partners in class?
Which
Especially
part?
since, well, any
Or
of them.
okay.
Yeah.
So the close listening, I always do as an individual exercise.
I got that part.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
And almost everything else is done with a pair
Okay.
as partners.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. And that just really allows them to, whether it is understanding, they're verifying with a peer, have they understood correctly, and then when they're creating a dialogue, right? I mean, one of the main goals of language is communication, and part of what we're always trying to do in class is to be able to get them to communicate with others orally, because in class that's where they're getting the most practice. And so that is done, with a partner, at least with one other partner.
And are you able to keep them pretty much in the target language? I know you mentioned that you do, with the exception of that cultural discussion.
Yeah.
And they're really on task with that
Yes.
for the most part?
For the most part, yes.
That's impressive.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So I too have a two-part question here, and it's about the actual video clips themselves.
Yes.
So I see that this is material from Al-Kitab,
Yes.
and so I know that these are very specifically crafted videos to fit the theme of the units and so forth. So 2 parts would be, what is your comment, your take on using instructor-designed semi-authentic videos in materials like this for teaching versus trying to find authentic materials that would serve that purpose? And in the service of either one, what are the criteria we should be looking for that would make a good video clip? Because all of these are short, all of them clearly have video components that are as important as the text and all, but what are some of the things you in particular look for in a video clip that you think, that's going to be great for this lesson, for this class?
So I think there are many different things. I think that the speed of speech needs to be considered. Listening is probably one of the most difficult skills for students to acquire. And I also think that, so what did I just say? Now I can't find my words. The speed of the speech is very important, and the length, I think, is also very important. Because it's really difficult, and it can be very frustrating for students to try to watch a few minutes in the target language and then come back and say, okay, what did you understand? Well, maybe they were lost from, like the first 10 seconds, and then that just, doesn't even allow them to continue. And so I think, especially with beginning, to keep the video clips not as short as possible, but I think between 1 to 2 minutes is ideal to allow students to really be able to focus on specific things. And then in regards to authentic versus semi-authentic, for the type of things that we are teaching in an elementary level class, I don't know that it would be as easy to find completely authentic video that would help us get across the idea. It could be, but I think it would be much more difficult to find. It would probably also not be at the speed that we would like for our students to listen to. And so I don't have a problem at all with semi-authentic material. I think that as the learner progresses in the language, then there is much more opportunity to introduce authentic material.
Thanks.
Sure.
I have a question about I like very much the idea of when you ask them to predict what is happening and to create a dialogue, which is nice. But technically, I mean, this is not listening yet.
True.
Right? I mean, this is the pre-listening.
That is, yes.
But to what extent, from your experience, because I haven't done something like this, and this is a great idea, to what extent you see there is, I mean, I see what's happening is vocabulary activation. But if they have studied the vocabulary, to what extent you see this is a good tool for vocabulary activation, that phrase, from your experience?
I think it's a great tool because they've already had the brainstorming idea of, okay, what kind of language are we supposed to be expecting? And so they, so we also can write up on the board, like with what are you going to be drinking, right? All the different list of things. And so they have it there, and so they see it, and they already know what type of words that they should be using and where they should be focusing in on. And this allows them to take that then like a step further to be like, okay, I've been studying this vocabulary, I know these words, I know in which context they're appropriate, and now it's time to put them into usage. So I think it does help them a lot with vocabulary practice. One of the most difficult things for students is learning vocabulary, and as much as possible, I think if we are able to recycle and reuse vocabulary as much as possible in a short amount of time, that will help students enormously. I always tell my students, like, most of the research shows that, in order for you to really learn a word, you have to be exposed to it between 5 to 21 times. I tell them, it's not 5 times. You're really going to go to the 21 times, right? So I tell them, okay, you wrote it in your homework, you listened to it, you practice saying it, that's 3 times, we got 17 more times to go. And so as many times as possible, I think, will always be